Hello, hello, hello. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and breaking news, Johnny Depp won his case. And he had obviously already won in the court of public opinion, which to the distress of Amber Heard's team, which I think there's been quite a few people, hopefully, that have been red-pilled, regardless of whether you believe, take his side or not take his side, or take her side, whatever, believe they're both guilty, etc. There have been TikTokers, a lot of people following the story, and people who are on the left who when she switched her teams, all of a sudden there were all these stories and they were coming after people like them, and they're like, I'm not one to come for the media and blame the media, but they're lying. And it's like, yeah, we know they're lying. But he won his case, and they said she obviously wrote that op-ed that was obviously about Johnny Depp, that was meant to harm him with malicious intent and whatnot. And he won. They said yes to everything, and he won. I did not think, I had heard that Johnny wasn't going to be there, but Amber was there. So there was a camera on her face, and I'm very sorry that I actually do not have the video to show you guys. It is breaking, but I was gonna do I know I've touched on it here and there, and post a video or two, but I was gonna do a top 10 things about the trial, and pretty much leave it at that. I know the world has been swept up in this sort of storm, but now that it is over, I will probably work on that top 10 takeaway video tonight, and leave it at that. But just one of the things, just to preview, just the idea that he was with his baby's mama for so long, didn't marry her, and then got this little young thing, and she was just a hot mess, is just amazing to me. An amazing in a really bad way. That and so many women are with men for such a long time, just thinking that they're not going to get married, or they're not the marriage type, and they just won't get married to you. And I don't know if she put a different demand that his other partner didn't put on him, or pressure, or whatever, or I don't know if she was just the young flavor that brightened his world at the time. But not everything that glitters is gold. And they just had a very toxic relationship, and we got to bear witness to how toxic it was. And I know a lot of people really took Johnny's side throughout all this, but it's just sad, though, the sort of public display that we all got to see through all of this. So pick better women, young men. That's all I got to say for now. But I'll talk a little bit more on this as well. Also, Marco Rubio had tweeted out how the Biden administration is putting forward a rule that's going to be cutting different funding, like school lunch programs and Pell Grants, etc., if your schools don't adhere to certain LGBT rules and other stuff like that. So I had shared that tweet. I think I maybe retweeted it, but I also shared it on my Facebook. So I'm going to explain what that is and why that's happening, because I do think it's something that we need to talk about. And when I shared it, I said, this is exactly why when people talk about we need all this pre-K funding, we need this preschool funding, I'm like, at what cost? What kind of strings are you attaching to that? Because I just don't trust you guys. I don't believe that you have the young people's minds and hearts in your best interest. There's always an agenda that you want to attach onto it. So you got to know that if when the government starts suggesting things and it comes with their money, it comes with their strings, and it comes with their agendas. So if they're doing that with this sort of funding, which all these public schools aren't about to just give up all this money that they've had for a long time. Schools people try to make it like schools are so underfunded. They're not underfunded. And a lot of it is from like property taxes. But if your property taxes don't make that up, you get a lot of money from like federal funds. So if the federal funds are like, we're not going to give you money unless you do what we say in regards to these issues, you're going to see a lot of people just roll over. And maybe even in these cases where you have stuff, rules that have been set up in the like state of Florida, for example, um, with different bills that they've been passing or different bills that they've been passing in other states, if you don't adhere to what the Biden administration is saying, they're going to cut funding. Now, if you weren't aware that this was a possibility, the Obama Biden administration, were up to doing this kind of stuff as well. So it's just another example of people not doing their due diligence and just voting a particular way because they did not like the man in orange. And now your kids may not be able to get school lunches, but I'm sure they will because I said I think people will buckle. People will buckle. So we're going to be talking about that. Also, Good Morning America decided to have an interview with Lia Thomas, who is a swimmer who was beating all the women. And at the same time that dropped, Matt Walsh dropped part of his interview with one of Lia's teammates. And so I'm going to play a little bit of both. I am really excited about Matt Walsh's documentary. I talk a lot about the Daily Wire. I really respect what they have done and what they're doing. I have not buckled down and got a subscription. I'm probably going to get one today because I really want to watch Matt Walsh's documentary, What is a Woman? Where he's asking people on the streets. He's traveling around the country, traveling across the world. He went to this one African tribe, and they're just like the ideas and sort of things that Matt's talking. That's big topics today in the U.S. They're just like, that's stupid. That doesn't make any sense. No, that's just not how it is. What? And so, but he also talked to experts and just asked the simple question, what is a woman? And people are dumbfounded because all this ideology and philosophy is really surrounded by, I don't know, a thread, just a thread. So I didn't know that he had interviewed one of the swimmers, which someone trashed her online in response to his video because she had her voice changed and was kind of blacked out. And I can understand people wanting privacy, but people should have stuck up more to the Leah stuff as it was happening. But it's gonna make good TV. I tell you, it's gonna make good TV. So I'm gonna play his portion and also some of the Good Morning America interview because I actually think during Leah's interview that he made a very valid point. And by the way, I don't respect gender pronouns, so if you're triggered, you got to go elsewhere. I don't care. But before we jump into all that, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that I have on my website, check out different articles that I have written, which I've written some in regard to Leah as well. Check out different merchandise that we have at the shop, like this Trump 2024 Make Crack Whack Again, which was really relevant yesterday because, New York, they had subway posters of, let me just show it to you. It's so crazy. I'm not going to go into a big thing because it was a segment yesterday, but don't be ashamed you are using. Be empowered that you are using safely. Yeah, that's the mentality that we have today. So anyway, I have that t-shirt you guys can check out at blacktnews.com. I have the You Are Not That Special shirt. I have them in cute little mugs that you guys can get there on the website. Also got black tea mugs, got My Money, My Business, I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For, that you guys can check out, and Be Better Not Better, Denounce White Supremacy, Defeat Joe Biden, with a list of some of his racist stuff on the back, along with the Goat hoodie, Goat t-shirts, and I have those in different colors as well. If you like what I do here at blacktnews.com, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Every little thing that you guys can do really, really helps, whether you want to give $10, $20, want to, give larger than that. I really appreciate that. As there are costs associated with the website and streaming and other kind of things. And we do want to grow over at Black Teen News, and we've had really good growth. I appreciate everyone who shares a video, everyone who tells other people about it. The word of mouth is very powerful, and I really do appreciate it. Make sure that you are liking, subscribing. I know some of you like to watch it on Facebook. Make sure that you're also subscribing on YouTube and that you hit the notification bells. I want to thank Brighter Michigan Pack. I'm in their studio. If I say something today that triggers you, I don't care. They don't care. It doesn't work like that. I'm just here using the space, and I appreciate that they like to uplift conservative voices like mine. Okay, so you guys know that I like to start off with something funny, and I'm sure you have already got alerts and seen videos and woke stuff from corporations or whatever. So you're already aware what June 1st is. It's the countdown to my birthday. No, seriously, my birthday's on the 10th. But no, it's Pride Month, and so Elon Musk had tweeted this like it's a hurricane with all the social media stuff in different pride symbols, saying June is almost here, but it's here now. And I think it's funny that someone that high profile was just, like, here it comes, because people are so obsessed with this month, at the embassy, like in the Vatican and stuff. They had a pride flag, and someone was saying they wouldn't do this in certain Muslim countries. And I'm like, I don't know if that's true, but wouldn't, if I'm not mistaken, maybe have. So I don't know if it's just about Catholic bigotry, but but the point was they believe that Biden and the administration is reliant upon the tolerance of course people wouldn't like it, but they just expect you to shut up and take it, I suppose. And they're just expect some people to backlash at home, but they don't expect people to make a big hoopla about it. By the way, our president's Catholic, allegedly. Allegedly. Such respectful people in their faiths. So I just want people to keep in mind how obsessed people are with Pride Month versus how much of a push there was for Black History Month. And I know people in other months as well, but Black History Month used to be the big thing. And I just didn't feel like there was maybe it's because people are now comparing it to how corporations and everybody goes all out for this month compared to other ones, but it just doesn't seem like there's that same kind of enthusiasm. So I feel like Black History, and a lot of people, granted, including Black people, don't like Black History Month. I feel like it's really unique in the sense that Black history is American history. It's not about going back into your heritage way back somewhere else. It's uniquely ingrained about the American experience, the struggle, the ultimate underdog story in these people, like on my Be Better Not Better shirt, who really, really fought to make the world a better place, and after it was over, tried to build a better place and weren't extraordinarily better. So I mean, that's why I made the shirt, because I don't feel like a lot of activists and folks today actually share that sort of optimism that people had in the past. So I'm really fascinated with history. I've written historical fiction novels and so on. So I like learning about stuff like that, especially during that time. And when I was a kid, it seemed like a lot of those topics weren't really covered unless it was that particular month. So I think we should get to a place where we don't feel like we need such a month. But anyway, it seems strange to me that this one is the one where everyone's cash cowing everywhere. And man, there's so much stuff being produced by the military, posting stuff. There was a Space Force tweet that instead of like on the moon having like the Planet American flag, it was a gay flag. So it's just all very fascinating, the effort everyone puts into the month. But anyway, I thought it was a funny tweet from Elon, just mocking the coming of the next month, of this entire month. First things first, I want to talk about what Rubio said. Biden will be cutting off Pell Grants, school lunches, and billions of other federal education dollars to any school or college that refuses to follow his new and radical transgender and LGBT policies. So when I saw that, I believed it, but I was trying to figure out exactly what he was talking about. And so there's this article from the Center Square who was talking about the this Biden administration stuff going to effect. Now, he already like announced the stuff was going to happen, but we're starting to see different changes coming into motion. So it says new Biden administration rule will tie federal education funding to LGBT mandates. An upcoming Biden administration rule will change the billions of dollars federal education funding to an array of LGBT policies, forcing school districts and universities to implement controversial rules on issues like transgender athletes in order to receive federal funding. The U.S. Department of Agriculture said this month it will change how it interprets Title IX prohibit. Uh, on discrimination based on sex to include discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. That change means that schools that accept any kind of funding, including students receiving FAFSA or Pell Grants, or students who receive federal subsidized school lunch funding, will be subject to new Title IX LGBT interpretation. As a result, state and local agencies, program operators, and sponsors that receive funds from the FNS must investigate allegations of discrimination based on gender identity or sexual orientation, USDA said in a statement. Those organizations must also update their non-discrimination policies and signage to include prohibitions against discrimination based on gender identity and sexual orientation. This means that schools around the country will be forced to comply with a range of pro-transgender policies in things like sports, housing, locker rooms, and bathrooms if they want to continue receiving federal funds. The effort began when President Joe Biden issued an executive order almost immediately upon taking office. Since then, the administration has been publicly advocating for these policies, but the expected formally published rule change later this year will codify that policy. Children should be able to learn without worrying about whether they will be denied access to the restroom, the locker room, or school sports, the White House said when the order was issued in January of last year. So again, they put this stuff kind of out in the atmosphere before, and it shouldn't really be a shock if you're paying attention during the election time, which a lot of people weren't. Sarah Perry, a legal expert for the Heritage Foundation, said the rule change would also remove recently added due process protections for students accused of sexual harassment and sexual assault, which could be particularly important if misgendering individuals is redefined to be included in the harassment category. Not using the preferred pronoun of an individual could also land schools and universities in legal trouble under the Title IX changes, which there were young men. There's a case, particularly with two black guys, who were accused of misconduct in a school, and they were eventually proven not guilty, I suppose, but they didn't need any sort of kind of due process like on a college campus. So it was like, we can go ahead and ruin your life with the allegation, and maybe you can prove yourself innocent later, but we've already kicked you out of school and ruin your life in a sort of way. So yeah, this isn't good stuff. And when they talked about having these protections and stuff, and Betsy DeVos was talking about some of the how some of these young men were going through. I don't know, people just hated them so much, but a lot of injustice stuff was happening under the Obama administration, and the Biden administration, I guess, wants to revisit that time. A third change that is unspoken and won't appear in the new rule but will have implications. It will be essentially a muzzling of free speech in individuals who, for example, don't toe to the party line on gender identity and will be forced to use individuals' preferred pronouns or be faced potentially with Title IX sex discrimination changes, Perry said. So it will not only require the adherence to these beliefs, it will force speech. It will compel speech in violation of the First Amendment, and we will have yet to even examine fully the parameters of how that's going to play out in the courtroom. Some schools are allowed to use religious exemption to some rules, like of the kind laid out in the administration, but the experts say it remains unclear whether Biden administration will honor those exemptions or challenge them, which would likely lead to legal battle. The Biden administration said in its announcement it is a push toward equity and fairness. Notice it's always equity now, and it's not about equality. Did you know, by the way, that in the Democratic Party platform, they do not believe. Now, this is about race, but I'm assuming they mean it if it's gender and stuff too. But they don't believe that we should have like equal laws that are just applied to like everybody. They believed that, I guess, America is too kind of far damaged and gone, that they need race-based solutions and different laws that are not equally applied to everybody. That is actually in their platform, which isn't very it's a little surprising, but I mean, that's the same vein as like CRT, etc. So it's so funny that so many Democrats were like, critical race theory, that's just in law school and stuff, as if it's not like in your platform. In your party platform that you guys meticulously wrote and voted on. USDA is committed to administering all of its programs with equity and fairness and serving those in need with the highest dignity. Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack said a key step in advancing these principles is rooting out discrimination in any form, including discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. Other critics, though, argue that girls will be victims of this policy change when schools are required to allow trans girls to use facilities designated for women, such as bathrooms, locker rooms, and dorm rooms, saying it violates their privacy and opens them up for sexual assault. Yeah, I didn't really think about dorms too much. That would be, I mean, there's co-ed dorms in some places, but um there's just really no true maybe there is consideration, but they just shrug their shoulders and laugh at these young women. I don't know. It's pretty crazy because it's like, what they're like, what about the trans people that feel so out of, uncomfortable, etc. I wouldn't wish gender dysphoria on anyone feeling uncomfortable about who you are in your body. That sucks. But young women feel that all the time, especially in their adolescence growing up. I didn't like to change in the locker room in front of other girls. I would go like in the bathroom stall. I didn't really feel differently until I started getting older, and really until I started working out and losing some weight and stuff as well. And I always kind of thought of myself as a more confident person, and I didn't realize how much confidence I would have until I started dropping a couple pounds. But life can be hard for a lot of people, but to stick a boy, like, for example, with the UPenn stuff, Lia Thomas in the locker room, Lia didn't always cover his penis in the locker room, and people were uncomfortable, and they did not care. So there's just not a lot of consideration for these young women who get in these awkward places, and they're a victim of the hierarchy of oppression Olympics. So I brought this up to say, and I said it before, when people talk about how we need more funding and we need the government to pay for, which when they say the government doesn't have money, they confiscate it from us and then they distribute it, right? But when it is becomes theirs after they take it, their money that they distribute comes with strings attached. So now they're pushing that sexual identity is the same as sexual orientation, is the same as, like, if you discriminate against somebody for their race and etc., other stuff like that, which isn't true. And it's not the same. You being born a particular way isn't the same as having a behavior, like, and gender identity is not just a matter of I mean, you can decide to act out whatever way you want. It's not that you've had to have transition. You can be a man with a full on penis. Maybe you're not even wearing a dress. Maybe you just identify that way, and you can say that you're a woman and then be able to go into a locker room. There was an incident at the Wii Spa where someone just had their stuff out, and a friend of mine who is transgender, they live their life as a lesbian woman, but they've always had different issues with struggling with identity, and they're just like, this is so crazy that someone would do this, as someone who feel that it didn't compute with someone who actually feels like at war with their body, that you would just be open to have your dingleberries out just harassing women. So there's gonna always be people who take advantage of this crazy stuff, and it's not because I think there's so many people out there who are trans who are willing to take advantage of women like that. But when you are so aggressively willing to cover up for those people, that there's predators who come in and take advantage. So, like with the Wii Spa situation, so many people want to take the side of the person who has their stuff out when there's women and young girls there. So, and yeah, someone also mentioned in the comments that Lee also said that he was attracted to females still. So you have a a guy who gets to be in the locker room with all these women while they're changing and they're naked, and sometimes his stuff is out, and he's making everyone else feel uncomfortable. Now, there was a situation when Obama was president, and I don't remember what school it was. If I had to guess, maybe it was in Illinois or Indiana or something. I don't remember what state it was in, what high school it was. But there was a young person who was trans, and they wanted to like sue and stuff and be able to use whatever locker room that they wanted. And the Obama administration was trying to take their side and mess with federal funding. So if you were unaware that this could be a route that Biden was going to take, when he became president, and you just thought he was going to be like this nice, calm, sort of moderate guy, that's not what was in the cards at all in the least bit. You just weren't paying attention. I don't think he's writing all this stuff himself, but he is pushing it, and he does get up and he reads a teleprompter and he lets someone tweets it out on his account. So this is on him, and it's on the people who work in his administration. But to the people who want free stuff with the pre-K and maternity, like all this kind of stuff that they want from the government, you have to understand that government money comes with different strings attached. And there's a lot of people who do daycare and stuff who are like religious organizations. So what if they want to have all this funding, and there's not just like a plethora of people ready to do that, and maybe a lot of these places that would take care of kids and stuff have some kind of religious affiliation, and they're like, well, you know what, you can't get this money unless you are willing to teach this certain stuff about transgenderism, etc. And they're like, no, we're not going to do that. And they're like, well, you can't have our money, or you can't even have the money that maybe you had before. So and I guess other people, other places and stuff will rise up, but you just have to know that the government does not come with good intentions. It really doesn't. It really doesn't. So when people talk about pre-K and other stuff, I'm so concerned about it. I'm like, why do they want our children earlier and earlier and earlier in their hands? Why so? Why is that a thing? Why were so many people offended with the Florida's parental rights and education bill? Like, why are these people so gung-ho about protecting drag time story hour? Why are these people so gung-ho about Disney Plus having a This Is Me drag queen thing that they had? Why are all these people so pressed about getting to your little children as early as possible to have all these ideas in their heads? These kids who just want to, I don't know, some of them eat dirt and they just want to be kids doing weird, dumb kid things. Someone said they don't have children, they have ours. Some of them have kids. Some of these people are weirdos. But some of them, they do want your kids. That's true. That is true. Did you guys hear, by the way, this is not a prep thing. It just came in my mind. Maybe I should have had it ready to go. But there was a story about a man, I think it was in the UK, who has fathered 15 children of like lesbians. He would go into like these profiles and stuff and groups and just say, hey, I'm a willing donor. And he has some kind of deficiency a genetic deficiency where his children will have very low IQs. And I guess people wanted, he was fighting for parental rights, but people were also trying to get him off the donor list as well, because he didn't disclose his condition. And they're like, at first he was claiming he just wanted to help these women and stuff, but then he came back and he allegedly didn't want any sort of outreach with the children, but now he does. It's a very weird story, very strange story, but be careful, folks, if you're not doing things in the natural way. You don't know. Someone say you got dumb sperm. I guess it was just a fascinating story. It happened over in the UK, and I saw the Daily Wire did a story about it, and I read it last night. I'm like, this is really interesting. Okay, moving on to this story with Lia Thomas. So ABC, the Good Morning America, decided to interview Lia, and we're not gonna watch the whole thing, but I did think some of it was pretty interesting, and then I want to play a little bit. Daily Wire's Matt Walsh's documentary "What Is a Woman" is coming out today. I'm very excited about it. very excited about it. Can't wait to watch it. But he actually interviewed one of the teammates, and I've read a couple of stories from different teammates who had different complaints about Lia during that whole situation, and I've written a little bit about it too. But I'm interested to see all that these folks had to say about it. But even what Matt reported was pretty interesting. So I'm going to play that after we watch a little bit of the Good Morning America thing. But we're going to start with that.
Is the swimmer who created shockwaves across the country. 23
I just want to basically get to the parts when he's talking a bit.
Thomas has largely remained quiet until now.
I knew there would be scrutiny against me if I competed as a woman. I was prepared for that, but I also don't need anybody's permission to be myself and to do the sport that I love.
Assigned male at birth, Thomas grew up in Austin, Texas, where she says she fell in love with swimming when she was just 4. But as she grew, she says she felt increasingly disconnected to her body.
I didn't feel like I was a boy. I was like, this isn't me, this isn't who I am.
Thomas earned.
By the way, do we think it's really stupid that a news program is saying assigned male at birth? You're not assigned male at birth, like, and come on, male, female aren't those like biological terms? Like you have the man and woman. You guys want to say is gender, but male and female, isn't that still reserved for like actual biological sexual stuff? So I'm saying assigned male at birth. Is it even by their logic, Lia's still a male? So it's all madness.
A spot at her Ivy League dream school, UPenn, on the men's team. But by her sophomore year, she says her gender dysphoria left her depressed and suicidal.
I was barely going to classes. I could really barely get out of bed, and I said I can't live like this anymore. And I want to be able to do things I enjoy.
Even if it might cost me my swimming career.
Yeah, and that's part of what kept me from transitioning for so long, is I wasn't sure if I could continue swimming and doing the sport that I loved.
Thomas began.
So, doing things you enjoy, like what? Like taking drugs, like to change your appearance? I don't understand what that was, because he knew there's a risk that he might not be able to compete to swim, but he was swimming before, but he was just losing. He was just losing a lot. Maybe that's the difference. Maybe that's the difference, that you weren't that good compared to your male counterparts. Maybe that's the difference.
HRT, hormone replacement therapy, in May of her sophomore year, 2019.
The mental and emotional changes actually happened very quickly. I was feeling a lot better mentally. I was less depressed, and I lost muscle mass, and I became a lot weaker and a lot slower in the water.
After following NCAA guidelines of a year of hormone therapy to change gender categories, Thomas started her senior year on the women's team. But her success in the water was met with outrage leading up to the NCAA championships. Her critics say she jumped in the rankings between the men's and the women's team.
And there are some who
That's not, the critics mentioned that. That's just a fact.
look at the data and suggest that you're enjoying a competitive advantage. What do you say to that?
There's a lot of factors that go into a race and how well you do. And the biggest change for me is that I'm happy. And sophomore year, where I had my best times competing with the men, I was miserable. And so having that be lifted is incredibly relieving.
So that's funny. So she's like, hey, your critics are saying that you have an advantage, that maybe you weren't doing so hot before competing against the men, and now you're competing against the women, and now you're killing them. Your ranking has gone from 200 percent or whatever, and now all of a sudden you're like at number one. So what do you have to say about that? And he's like, well, I'm happy now. I'm happy now. I was sad before when I was losing against the men, and now I identify as a woman, and now I'm competing against the women, and now I'm winning, and I'm happy. I'm not saying that he's not happy because he's not Lia now. I'm not saying that, but winning feels good, doesn't it? And the fact that he feels happy, is it a good pushback against the criticisms of reality of, hey, you weren't doing too hot there with the men, and yes, you had faster times, but what does it say that your faster times as a man competing against other males, you were still not great in your ranking, but against the women, you're number one, even though you're slower. So that just goes to show you how much of an advantage you have as someone who has benefited from being a male and is still a male. Your body mass and other stuff has changed, but you still have had these advantages that have made your body. I mean, your wingspan, all your bone density, so many things that have made your body superior in this race. Because if there wasn't an advantage in that sort of way, you wouldn't be where you are at the number one spot with the women. So that was just a really, really bad comeback, and they let that go.
And allows me to put my all into training.
By the way, it doesn't, no, not caring that it's unfair. Not this narcissist, not caring that it's unfair to the women. The response is, well, I'm happy now. Response is, I'm happy now. Just a narcissist.
Into racing, trans people don't transition for athletics. We transition to be happy and authentic and our true selves. Transitioning to get an advantage is not something that ever factors into our decisions.
If they're not transitioning for a competitive edge, and I'm not saying that's the only reason why they do that, that's not my accusation, but if it's just to be your true authentic self, which, I mean, you were your true authentic self, you are getting hormones and stuff to alter that, but if the goal is just to be a woman, and if that's how you truly are happy, then why can't you live with not competing? Why can't you live with not competing? Or why can't you live with competing still against the men? If it's not about having some kind of advantage, because he hasn't even addressed the unfair, like, physical advantage. All he just was that he's happy. This is madness.
You didn't transition to win more medals?
No.
Thomas quickly became a lightning rod. 16 of her own teammates and some of their parents wrote anonymous letters arguing Thomas posed a threat to women's sports.
The women who signed the letter anonymously said that they absolutely supported your right to transition, but they...
Okay, so listen to this, because I think he has a good point that he's about to mention.
They simply think it's unfair for you to compete against cisgendered women.
You can't go halfway and be like, I support trans women and trans people, but only to a certain point, where if you support trans women as women and they've met all the NCAA requirements, and then I don't know if you can really say something like that.
I agree with that. I think he has a point. I think he has a point. If you're, all these people are like, well, I respect Lia's right to be there, and we'll use the she, and we'll go on with the, you know, his belief that he's a woman will affirm the unreality or the not reality of it all, and where they go along with it just to be kind or because they believe it or whatever, they are feeding into this scenario. And he's like, you can't just do it halfway. Either you support me and what I'm doing and who I am, and on my, if you're using the pronouns, you are affirming the identity of Lia, but now you're gonna say Lia can't compete even though Lia has met the standards as far as the testosterone levels and other stuff, and you don't want Lia to compete? Is Lia a woman or not a woman? You're addressing Lia like he's a woman. So do you agree or you not agree? I think that raises a fantastic point, because a lot of people want to start be pussyfooting around the issue and try to be like, well, I respect you and I want to be able to, but but you're just continuing to affirm, and it's not just about an individual thing. This person's going out and competing and beating other women. It's not just about you dressing how you want to. It's having other effects. People are changing their licenses. There was a victim who had a statement in the UK, and they amended their statement because they didn't want the victim of sexual assault to misgender their attacker. So this is having other repercussions than just how you identify in your head. So if you're going to write these letters and still be like, Lia is a woman, Lia has this identity, we respect who she is as a trans person, Lia has a point. Lia has a point. So why can't Lia compete if you've given into the idea that Lia is a woman? If you've given into that, I think Lia has a point.
Trans women are not a threat to women's sports.
That's a lie.
While the science on
That's a lie. Obviously a threat to women's sports. Obviously a threat to women's sports.
transgender athletes is new and evolving. Some medical experts say the effects of
I think that's pretty much all I want from that interview to show you guys. But I thought that was an interesting point. Now I'm going to go ahead and play the Daily Wire video that Matt Walsh posted last night after GMA posted theirs. It was good timing, but it is interesting that they do have a teammate on the documentary.
Lia obviously helps us do better, right? Lia's swimming really fast. Lia's performance helps the University of Pennsylvania swim team. The feeling of winning doesn't feel as good anymore because it feels tainted. There was a lot of things you couldn't talk about that were very concerning, like a locker room situation. If you even brought up concerns about it, you were transphobic. If you even bring up the fact that Lia swimming might not.
I think the locker room situation is the fact that Lia's junk was out, that the junk wasn't always covered, by the way.
Be fair, you were immediately shut down as being called a hateful person or transphobic.
But there's never any conversation. The coaches don't sit everyone down and acknowledge what everyone's really upset about.
So Penn actually brought in people high up in the athletic department to talk to us. They brought in someone from like the LGBTQ center. They brought in someone from the psychological services.
So you're upset about what's happening, and so you need psychological help.
Yeah, and they told us in this meeting, they said, look, we understand there's an array of emotions, but Lia swimming is a non-negotiable. However, we can help you make that okay. That's what we're here for.
So that's crazy. I'm very interested in seeing the rest. Kudos to the Daily Wire for putting this out. There's a lot been and other people are saying it's probably the best thing that they've put out. And it's getting some good reviews from at least folks on my side of the aisle who I guess would respect. So I'm sure there's folks on the left who aren't going to be too excited when that drops. And it's subscription only, so I don't know how many people are going to be able to watch it from the other side of the aisle. But I'm excited to watch it and to see more of that interview. But I think it is interesting that the girls were upset, so they sent an expert in basically to make them learn to live with the new reality. As he said, you're upset about what's going on, so they send you therapy. It's just amazing how so instead of Lia just being a man, competing with men, losing with men, against the men, and getting some kind of therapy for depression and all sorts of other things, Lia gets to transition, come on the women's team, beat the women. It's non-negotiable on the team. Junk hanging out in the locker room, you're not allowed to talk about it. And if you are upset, they're like, here, have some therapy. Learn to deal with the new reality. So do people actually think this is okay? Do people really think this isn't okay for our society to be that this is the step forward to progress, where women just have to shut up and comply with this sort of stuff. But when it comes to like abortion, all sorts of other things, women's sex work, etc., it's women empowerment all day long. But if a woman says, hey, we don't want a biological male in our locker room and his junk hanging out, we don't want this man to beat us in all these sports, we feel like our winning is tainted because we are not actually an all-female team anymore. They're like, you suck, you're a homophobic bigot, here, have some therapy and learn to shut up and live with it. Just shut up and swim. We are not in a good place. We are not in a good place, and we know that our leaders in authority are just going to make it worse, especially as I already mentioned earlier, that certain rules from the Biden administration are going to make it so that they're going to get some funding cut if they do not adhere to the sort of policies and cultural wars that the White House want to push. And for whatever reason, the Biden administration has decided to go all in on trans rights at the expense of women. So, but your vote has consequences. Your vote really does have consequences. And you know, a lot of people love Trump, hate Trump. Part of his victory in 2016 was also pushing against some of this culture war stuff that was going on. I mentioned like how the Obama administration, they started some of this stuff as well. There's not a plethora of stuff like there wasn't a plethora of things back then as there all are today. And not like an account like Libs of TikTok posting this stuff all the time, I suppose, but it did exist. So there were some pushback, and there were people talking about it in other places and Twitter and stuff. So the cultural pushback on some of that stuff was Trump. Now there's a lot of other reasons why Trump ended up being the person who ended up being president beyond that, but it was very much about a cultural sort of pushback. And in 2020, it was so much like hatred directed at him that enough people decided to just look the other way with a lot of this other stuff, and they convinced themselves, even though it was a bad assumption, that Biden would just be the moderate sort of person, and he would try to get us, I don't know, back to like a base level sort of sanity, and he just goes full on crazy person. But you should have known better. And so the midterms is looking like it's going to be a wipeout. I saw an article tweeted out, but I saved it, but I didn't get a chance to read it yet. It's an opinion in the Wall Street Journal about how if Democrats only lose like 25, 30 seats, then that's probably good for them. I mean, they're just about to get clocked. But of course, we also need to take the White House in 2024. And I'm not saying it's a slam dunk for Trump coming back, who obviously appears to want to run at this point. There's other people who are in the rumblings that I'm hearing that some people that folks are interested in supporting rather than the old president. But I think everyone really knows that a Biden term 2 isn't happening. But we don't need someone who's going to just continue on with these destructive policies. So especially if anyone is tied to the Biden administration right now and is going to use it as a springboard for 2024, those kinds of people can't win, because we are just headed on a collision course of disaster. Last thing I'm gonna bring up again is that Johnny Depp did win his case against Amber Heard, and that was breaking news like as soon as I started. And it's been a wild thing to watch, especially people's reaction to it. I thought the judge was so funny. She's like, we will be done by Memorial Day. She's like, you have such and such hours, you have such and such hours, we will be done. And so I wasn't even aware that like people had like certain time limits and stuff like that. But yeah, she made sure she shut it down and closed it down. People really had rave reviews about Johnny's team. People made a lot of memes and jokes about Amber's team. But Amber, I think at the end of the day, regardless of which side you pick, he came off far more credible and consistent than she did, and some of the things, like I said, I'm going to do a top 10 sort of takeaways. But I do think it's interesting that she did write an op-ed. and the AC was it she had help writing it, and she was supposed to give her money from the divorce settlement and donate it, and she didn't donate it. And she said, well, I consider a pledge this synonymous with donation. And let me tell you, that pledges and donations are not the same thing. If you've worked in sort of any sort of fundraising or just been in a part of like a church your whole life, I think you know that a pledge is not the same thing as you actually dropping it in the bucket. It's very different. It's very, very different. And so a lot of people came out initially believing her because she had pledged divorce settlement money to give it away, and people finding out that she actually had not done what she had said really put a foul taste in a lot of people's mouths. Initially, when she started saying stuff about Johnny and he started losing jobs and there was no new pirates, and lost his job for the Harry Potter films with the monsters in the suitcase thing. I forget what the Fantastic Beasts stuff. I don't know. I never really believed it. I don't know if I was really caught up in it a lot, I guess, from my as I'm remembering it, but I know it just didn't quite sit well with me, I guess. But the ACLU helping her to write that op-ed, that's gross to me. And I understand they want to help women and folks and everybody, but you didn't know if this was true or not. People were so wrapped up in their narrative with the Me Too movement, and it became like just believe all women. As a matter of fact, I think it was there was an article that came out, and I'm sure this is probably circulated because of Amber's team when she dropped her media team and got like a new one. There was an article that came out like even we need to get to a place where we just believe all women. Like it's not even about Amber, it's beyond that, but we just need to get back to believing all women. And that was always a ridiculous thing to me, because I'm like, because everybody knows women, and everybody knows a woman who would lie even about something like this. Everybody, I think a lot of people, I'm not saying they're your friend, which you should be a friend with someone like that, but everybody knows someone who'd be willing to lie. And have known women who have lied, or known women who have set men up to some degree or another. So, would you want to live in a world where your sons and your husbands can't get any sort of justice, that everyone has to just believe the woman? What if there's no evidence? What if there's no evidence? We're just supposed to believe her? What if she's not credible? Just believe her? And these people who are pushing this ideology, including like Biden and other folks, he ended up stepping in it himself when he got an accusation from Tara Reid. Now, I'm not saying that Tara Reid is incredibly credible, but she did have more evidence for her claim of Joe Biden sexually assaulting her than, for example, Christine Blasey Ford and the Kavanaugh thing. And you can say, well, that's different circumstance. Yeah, one's running for president. Ford didn't have a time, a place, date, location. Everyone involved with it said it didn't happen. But at least Tara Reid, there was evidence that, I think in her divorce settlement or something, that she had mentioned it to someone. And there was also was it Letterman, I believe, someone had called into the show asking a question about a daughter who was being like harassed by a senator or someone high up in government, and it was Tara Reid's mother. And and then Tara Reid also claimed that she had put in some kind of report or complaint or whatever, and it was in like the Biden's library or something that isn't supposed to be unlocked or something until wherever he submitted his papers wasn't supposed to be unlocked until a certain amount of years of being not in public life. And so he was being questioned about it, and this was on Morning Joe, and Mika was asking, why can't you just make the records public? If she says she knows where they are, where this record would be, but you guys are not putting it out. And he said, there's a lot of things in there that would be cannon fodder to campaigns. Like, I'm not aware of anyone who would do that. And I'm just like, hold up. This man just openly told the world that there's a lot of information out there that if people read it, and these are different position papers that he's had, different meetings that he's had, etc., speeches, that if people got their hands on, that it would be cannon fodder in a campaign. Otherwise, other words, people would be using it against him and would have things to say to use to make a claim against him being president. And he's like, why would anyone like release that? And to his point, he has a point. Like, why would any reasonable person do that? But why would any reasonable person put that out there, that all that information exists? And then I'm just like, how come no one else is talking about the fact that he said that? Why isn't Mika mentioning and pressing, like, what specific things do you think, Mr. President or Mr. Vice President, is mentioned in those things that you think will derail your presidential nomination or your presidential nomination you run? What sort of things in there? And no one like pushed it. No one really talked about it. I think I don't know anyone else who talked about it besides me. I'm just like, don't we just see what happened? It's pretty crazy. Oh well. And then Kamala Harris, who was like, believe all women, she believed Christine Blasey Ford before she even heard her testimony. It's when I started really disliking her and made her like my least favorite person in the entire Democrat primary in 2020. She's my least favorite person. She said that she did believe Tara Reade because she had to stick to her guns. She had to stick to her guns and still believe all women. So she is the vice president to a president who she believes sexually assaulted Tara Reade and who tried to stop her from integrating in schools because apparently he's a racist. And she's like, we did it, Joe. That's who these people are. That's who these people are. But anyway, I'm gonna do a top 10 thing back to the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing. A lot of people have been really, really engrossed in this phenomenon. And I just hope that people can make better life choices about who they decide to partner with. That if you have violence in your life, especially in your relationships, that's not normal. If you're a man and a woman is like really violent with you, and like, don't let her just get away with it being like, dude, you're a dude, just shut up, you're a pansy, just shut up and take it. You don't have to take that kind of stuff. And if you're a woman and you're going through some kind of abuse, you don't have to take that. You can just try to get out and try to get help. If don't keep yourself in those sort of toxic environments, and definitely don't make it so toxic that one day it can be the water cooler talk for everybody. If people were still going to work and where there were water coolers, or in the back in the day, used to be Cracker Barrels. Did you know that? That's why the restaurant is called Cracker Barrel, because that would be like the places like in the general store where people would come around and they'd have their conversations and stuff. Just something else that I learned in my research for my writing, for my historical fiction books. But yeah, I'm gonna have the top 10 thing, and I'll try to maybe even have that out tomorrow, I guess. But it was a fascinating journey. There's been lots of memes, and she's been heavily villainized through this whole situation, and I can't say she doesn't deserve it. But it's a lot for someone to take. But it's interesting listening to some of the old recordings of the two of them, and Johnny, like at one point he did try to give her an out, like, let's just settle this. At one point I heard the recording when he was like, you know what, we're going to court. And then I heard another recording where it was like, we can just settle this outside of the court. And there was another one that was just like, I'm done and we're doing it. So there, it didn't always have to be this way. There's talks about Johnny coming back and doing stuff on other things. A rumor that maybe he's going to be in the new Beetlejuice movie. They're maybe talking about that. So I think he's going to be able to get other roles. He said would never work for Disney again. He had some co-stars that stood like with him from like the pirate stuff, but Johnny even said that he thought it was interesting how he's such a toxic person, but they're still selling all the stuff with his face on him, with him and stuff. Still getting that residue checks from his work. So there's that. Amber, she was only in Aquaman for a little bit. They were able to, they had a full-on spoiler, I guess, that Aquaman's gonna have a baby in the movie, and that's how they explain how she's gone most of the time because she's like in the hospital, I suppose, which they dropped that spoiler. Warner Brothers sure can pick them, right? But apparently she also doesn't have great chemistry with Jason Momoa, so that's another reason why the screen time was cut. There's a lot of people who could have played the role that she had, so I don't know what happens to Amber after this, but he's a I guess if you're an addict, you say that you're always an addict. I hope he is better for his mental health and that he can be sober, and she has issues as well. Her sister has issues. Like, so many of these people have been wrapped up in drugs and other stuff, and it's just I know they're celebrities and have these glamorous lives and stuff, but it's just really sad to me, and a lot of stuff that was bore out, just kind of bore out on the stand, just was really, really, really sad. So that kind of stuff doesn't just happen for celebrities, it happens to a lot of Americans. So again, please make better life decisions for yourself. But congratulations to Johnny, and to women out there, just think twice, I guess. The ACLU, shame on you. Shame on you. Anyway, thank you guys for watching today. Please visit blacktnews.com. Check out different content that I have on my website, different articles that I have, different merchandise that I have, like the My Money, My Business shirt, which I made because I got sick of people saying that, abortion and stuff isn't your business. I'm like, my taxpayer dollars are involved, so it's my money, my business. And you can say that with a lot of different things. So I made the shirt. I also got mugs, like the Black Teen News mugs. You guys can get the I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For, which we already talked about Star Wars yesterday. We don't need to go into it again, but if you didn't catch it from yesterday, you can go back and watch it. Be Better Not Bitter, mentioned that today, and all kinds of other different goodies that we have. So please check out the stuff at the store. If you enjoy what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. I appreciate all your support. Make sure that you guys are liking, that you're subscribing, that you're sharing the different videos and so on. God bless you guys, and I will